Hey, hey, everybody. Oh, this is so incredible. I've got my new headphones on, and I've had a hell of a time trying to get this meeting going with the amazing Heather Bodie, who is, so forgive me, but hey, that's all part of the game. I'm having an anxiety attack while I'm talking. So Heather Bodie is the executive artistic director of a truly unique theater company based out of Chicago called Erasing the Distance that has let me just get this right, that uses the power of performance to disarm stigma, awesome, spark dialogue, educate, and promote healing surrounding issues of mental health, right up our alley. Erasing the Distance uses verbatim text built from interviews with real people who have experienced mental health issues. So, very inspiring stuff. Like mental Hellness and my podcast Stories Like Crazy, Heather and I have a lot in common in our desire to help people find their voices and tell their stories. So Heather is extremely patient and funny and warm, and let's admit her, please. Heather!
We did it!
Woo!
Hold on. Where's my video?
And when you watch this back and you see the intro, you will see me having a panic attack as I'm doing the intro. But like you mentioned in our offline correspondence, when you said it's very on brand, I think it's very on.
Yes.
Every single episode, truly, of Mental Hellness has had some form or another of technical glitch, and it has challenged me every single time. So you'd think I'd be used to it by now. But anyway, you look lovely. We're here.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm usually working from home as the past, 6 million months have been.
Yes.
But today I'm in my studio all by my lonesome and didn't realize early in the morning trains go by every 30 seconds. So I'm going to put some headphones in.
Okay.
Just to make sure we get clear audio.
Okay.
All right. There'll still be a little bit of train, but
there we go. No, that's perfect. That's perfect. So thank you for joining me. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I actually just skipped town for a little bit as safely as possible to the mountains of Colorado.
Oh, so nice.
Yeah, so it was nice. I got to go stare at nature for a bit and try and find myself.
And did you find yourself?
No, still looking, but progress.
Right. We can only do what we can do, right?
Exactly.
How have the last 7 months been treating you?
Wow, great question. It's been a total mixed bag, and I imagine I'm not totally alone in this.
Right.
In the beginning, I felt like, well, as someone who's been working on managing their mental health for years, in the beginning, I felt really, really lucky. I felt like I have a therapy relationship. I have medication that I can rely on. I have friendships, relationships, even work relationships. I work in mental health, so lots of work relationships where I can be just obnoxiously open about what I'm experiencing and know that it's going to be welcomed and it's going to be accepted, and I'm going to be pointed toward resources, all that sort of good stuff. So in a lot of ways, I went into this feeling pretty lucky, but I will say that for the majority of the time, what I've felt is just completely inadequate, because a lot of people were turning to me saying, you're the queen of resources. You're the queen of this conversation. What do we do? This is the first time I'm feeling this. Or I've been feeling this for a long time, but the pandemic really tipped the scales and I need to talk to somebody. Who do I go to? What do I do? I was hearing a lot of, this is your time. Go out and talk to people.
It's your time to shine.
The world. And as somebody who lives with ADHD, anxiety, and depression all in one fancy stew, that was crushing. I mean, that has been absolutely crushing to the point of paralyzation on most days of like, where do I even begin to do all those things and do them well? And so then I end up doing a whole bunch of nothing besides hating myself. So that's been the majority of that narrative over the past 7 months. I do have some hugely exciting days where we have some sort of a breakthrough or I get really good news or,
Yeah.
you know, and then I'm like prancing around the world, like we can change it one day at a time, but those are,
But
those
it's,
are few and far between.
yeah, but you then they're just that much more special, right? I can relate so much to what you're saying about when you spend a lot of your time talking about mental health and being incredibly open, as I am as well, obviously, doing a show like this. It can get exhausting when you are put in a position sometimes to be the prop,
Mm.
to prop to prop people up, and you don't. And it's funny, I want to hear all of the stories, but I don't always share my own story because I think that maybe that will somehow be a burden.
Mm.
And it's like, oh, you don't need to hear that. Let me hear more about you, which is probably why I do this, because I want to hear more about other people's stories. But it can be really exhausting when you're seen as the resource person,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
you
And it
know?
can be, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, I do know.
So, what do you do then when you are battling your three diagnoses, or one at a time, or all three at once? What are some of the things that you do?
Well, I'll give you a little bit of a history of
Yes, please.
the combo first, just to give you an idea.
Yeah.
I spent my whole, I'm in my mid 30s now, and I wasn't diagnosed with anything until I was 33. So
Mm.
that part of my experience is very new. I saw a lot of ways that mental illness was impacting the people around me, family, friends, relatives. I was seeing the importance of disarming the stigma, which is why I got involved with this organization in the first place.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I'd fully accepted that I was one of the 1 in 4 adults.
Right.
I think that I knew I struggled, but I also knew that I had this host of tools to manage, and really just chalked it up to being part of being human, part of being alive, right? It's hard.
Right. Yeah.
I It wasn't until I was diagnosed. I'm trying to think of the clearest way to share this. And as
You
someone
have
who lives with
ADHD. There's no clear
ADHD,
way.
it's jumping all over. And it's not that I don't have a full idea of what I want to share.
Hmm.
It's more so that I struggle to prioritize what is the best thing to share. So
Mhm.
it sounds like my thoughts hop around because I'm looking at 100 of them and trying to decide which one to share with you first.
Right.
Um,
Yes.
I think that's where my little glitch is. Um, so I knew I experienced anxiety. I knew I experienced depression. I knew that it was cyclical. It would come in huge waves. I would go from being, the most productive person on earth to not able to get out of bed, not able to shower. And if I did get in the shower, not enjoy it.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know when a depressive episode has lifted, when
Mm.
I get in the shower and the warm water feels good. And I have
Wow.
this like you can like remember what enjoying a shower is like. And
Yeah.
that's when I know I'm like, oh, I was in a pretty tough place. So I knew I battled with those two things, but I did not know in any way, shape, or form that ADHD was part of my diagnosis
Yeah.
because I've always been a decent student. Joined every club and tried to be in some sort of leadership role in every club I joined.
Mm-hmm.
Um, People have referred to busy. Busy is the common word I hear. Oh, I know you're so busy, but do you have time to? That's always really bothered me because I feel like, oh my gosh, the people I love in my life, the people who are closest to me often reflect to me that do I have time for them because I'm so
Right.
busy. So I was sitting in my therapist's office about 3 years ago, and we'd been working together for a while, and she said, I know this is a little out of left field, but would you be willing to do a questionnaire, just a little exercise? I'm looking to evaluate you for ADHD. Would you be open to that? And I was like, well, I don't care. I love worksheets, bring it on. So I'm filling out this little worksheet. It was basically one of those like 1 to 10, 1 not at all, 10.
Yeah.
And I was wanting there to be an 11 or 12. all the way down the chart. I was like, this all the time doesn't do it. It's constant. It's in my sleep.
Yep.
And I handed the thing back to her and she was like, okay, not suggesting that it's a definite, but you might. She's like, according to the Diagnostic Statistics Manual, you might be living with ADHD.
Don't want to label you,
Uh-huh.
but
and that really, for me, was a turning point. I got on some medication and realized that on medication for ADHD, I could breathe.
Yeah.
I could slow down.
Mm-hmm.
I could hold a conversation. I could sit down to write an email and get from the first sentence to the last sentence and hit send.
Yeah.
And that was something I hadn't been able to do ever in my entire life.
Wow. Can I just ask, did you notice that before? Like, so something as simple as sending an email, did you notice before this that you maybe struggled with doing that? Or was it just like, well, this is just how it is. And sometimes I go from A to C down to Z, or Z. Did you even see that as a problem, I guess is what I'm asking. And then suddenly when you get the medication or the solution and you're doing things differently, did you see that you were doing them wrong in the first place?
Well, I'm gonna use the word wrong as the jumping off point, because that's how I've always felt, is that I kept doing everything wrong. Why couldn't I do anything right? And that everybody I encountered, teachers, friends, whatever, everybody had a way that worked for them, that they were sure if I just tried it, then it would work for me. And I've been in countless frustrating conversations where I'm like, no, I've tried that. No, I promise you I've tried that. No, I really tried that. No, I drove myself to tear your hair out crying, tried that. And there's something wrong with my brain is what I was always saying. There's mine doesn't work that way. Mine doesn't work that way. And, I think getting the medication and seeing the difference ran the playback button in my brain and was like, oh my gosh, this has been going on forever. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. That's why I did this. That's why I did that. That's why I did this. I mean, the fact of the matter is I was successful in life, not because in my early life, school life, not because I was able to focus, but because I was socially evolved. I've always been very sociable. And so what I found was that I could make my way through life convincing teachers that my paper that was 3 weeks late should still get a grade, because I was on this team and that team and this team and had to be at this practice and that practice, and I was taking 3 AP classes and I had the SAT and the ACT to prep for, and. So what I created was this stew of 1,000 things that had to happen, so that every time I was at one thing, if I wasn't doing it well or able to focus on it, I could say it was because of the 10,000 other things.
Right.
And people understood. And
right.
So I got
instead of saying, I think there's something wrong with my brain. Yeah.
And that just doesn't go over well permanently, to say, I've never written a paper or what I imagine a normal person does when they're assigned a paper in school. I cannot get the first sentence onto the page. I can't explain it, but I can't get the first word of the first sentence onto the page. And I wait until half an hour before the 10-page paper is due. And then in a fit of tears and shaking, I type out the whole thing. I get the whole thing in and I get a B on it. And my mother would always say to me, if you just did this a little earlier, if you just paced yourself, if you didn't procrastinate, the word procrastinate. If you didn't procrastinate, you'd get all A's, but instead you're getting some A's, some B's. Oh,
wow.
And that was, I don't know. I now in true to ADHD form, I have lost my train of thought, but just to share that, I saw the way I was struggling, but did not at all connect it with that particular diagnosis. And then once I saw the way I could be different,
I
It was
can,
some of a relief.
and I hear that, and I can relate to so much of what you're saying. And I remember a similar but different story of, I have bipolar disorder and anxiety and depression. So a nice soup like you have. Um, and it was a couple years ago, maybe 2, 3 years ago, sitting in my psychiatrist's office, and we were having a similar conversation where he gave me an assessment, much like you were talking about. He said, I'm curious about something. And we did a similar assessment. And he said to me, I think that you're a really good candidate also for ADHD. What do you want to do about it? And
Mm.
I remember at that stage, not even entering my mind either. And I thought, listen, with everything else that I'm dealing with and all the other medications I'm on, surely to God, one of these medications should be able to address this other, because I'm really not prepared to take on another official diagnosis. And he said to me, you know what? That's fine. That's fine. If you're managing, and I think that's what it comes down to, right? If you're
Yeah.
managing in whatever way makes sense, whether that is medication, it's not medication, whether it's, all the things that people want us to do, like eat properly, exercise, whatever, you know, light a scented candle,
Uh-huh.
sit in a
I was
bathtub.
gone. Uh-huh.
I get this one all the time. And this happens to this day. I get some fresh air.
Mm-hmm. Take a walk around the block.
If you
Uh-huh.
exactly, if you just walk around the block and perhaps breathe deeply into your
Mm-hmm.
lungs,
Mm-hmm.
then
Then,
everything else will be fine. And,
sure.
like you were saying, about, for me, it was, well, then why can't I make this work?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm walking around the block 100 times and I'm still anxious,
Yes.
right? And then it just adds another layer of, this is stupid. This is really getting stupid. And I think that's, such a big part of it is trying to stand firm against people that really want to help, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. Of
And also, I mean, because they love you, right? And I
course.
think that in my own life, my deep frustration is rarely with them and more so with myself, which
For
is like,
sure.
this is the 40th different solution that someone has given me, and I've tried it
Yeah.
and it didn't work.
Yeah.
So that constant feeling of like, what's wrong with me? Why? And I think for me, I hit a breaking point where I was like, I can't live like this anymore. When you say like you're managing and you didn't really want to take on another diagnosis, whatever
Yeah.
that means, right? I
Yeah.
almost want to peel back that onion, which is
Yeah.
like, why does it matter? But I welcomed the diagnosis because I couldn't live in a space anymore where I felt like I was a shaky, anxiety filled, depression ridden, unorganized, chaotic mess every single day,
Yeah.
all the time. And I'm a person who I think it makes me emotional. I think on
Yeah.
the outside, people have reflected to me because I've been like academically successful or in some ways career successful.
Yeah.
People have been like, you just seem like, you showered and
You look fine.
yeah, my dad will say, but you smile all the time.
Yes. Oh, I know
like,
that one.
like as though smiling is something that
Yeah.
cannot coexist with living with active mental illness.
Of
So,
course. Yeah.
so I think I was just, I hit a point and I'm still in it. I mean, I'm not past it by any means. I'm still in this point where I want more for my life on a day-to-day basis. I want less mental hellness.
Oh,
And on a constant rolling basis. And so
yes.
anything I can do to alleviate that daily around the clock in my sleep
Because
experience.
it gets like, I get sick of myself. I don't know about you,
Oh,
but I get
oh,
just so tired of me.
oh.
And I think that's kind of what you're painting that picture, where it's like, Oh, for God's sake, not again. Here we
Mm-hmm.
go again with this.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for me, part of listening to other people's stories and giving people a platform to share their stories, boy, it's selfish in some ways, because you really, I feel less isolated when I hear other people's stories. And so that makes me want to ask, um, what is it that drew you then to Erasing the Distance?
Hmm. Well,
What?
initially what drew me to, so when I moved to Chicago in 2007 to pursue acting,
Mm,
um, I did all the things, took all the classes, got an agent, all that good stuff. And I really didn't lock into what element of it that was feeding me. I felt like I was doing it because I said I was going to do it. And then I auditioned for Erasing the Distance, for a role playing a veteran living with PTSD. And it was after opening night when someone stood up in the audience and shared that they had bussed like a couple dozen of their family members from Southern Illinois to see uh, in her case, it was her father's story, but there was 4 generations there. And it was the first time that any of them had heard the details of what he experienced. And then she said, thank you. And I looked over and 2 dozen people are like crying and nodding their heads and
yeah,
tissues everywhere. And I thought, oh, this is it. I had
yeah,
no idea that giving somebody a pathway to share their story, even though that man wasn't standing on stage, right? Because we
mhm,
hire actors to share the verbatim stories. It was a pathway, it was a venue, it was an outlet for him to share details of his experience with his family in a formal setting, because there really is no great time to say, hey, everybody, want to hear about my mental illness? I mean, it's just not the topic for dinner. It's not the topic for holidays. It's not the topic after school, right? It's
right,
just not the hot topic.
yeah,
So to have that outlet and to see that all of them had some sort of a window into understanding um, their experiences was just life changing for me. So realizing
beautiful.
that you could do that, that I was hook, line, and sinker.
It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard of when I'm thinking about the work that I do with mental health advocacy. I think Erasing the Distance does something so incredibly unique and so important. The work is just so important, that I can't wait to get down to Chicago if this thing ever ends, and really participate and take part and experience it, because I think that um, every opportunity we can give people to give voice in their own way. And even though, like you say, you hire actors, it's still, you stay as true as you can. And when
Mm-hmm.
people find their voice, it can crush some of the demons, or it can tame some of the demons, or it can even put some of the demons off to the side for a short period of time, because I think all of us dealing with mental health issues get tired.
Absolutely. And
So
then and the narrative, I think something that makes something that is unique about the experience with Erasing the Distance from a storyteller's perspective
yeah,
is that in a therapy relationship, in a talk therapy relationship, you're sort of going moment by moment. What happened last week?
yeah,
Tell me about your childhood. Tell me,
yeah,
right? You're going through all these different moments. When you come in and sit down with one of our story collectors, we hit record and you can say whatever you want for as long as you want. And
yeah,
a lot of people come in saying like, I don't know if I have a story. I don't know if this is what you're looking for. I don't know where to start.
yeah.
And the answer is yes, 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 yes. You're
Just go.
alive, so you have a story.
Yeah,
And wherever you start is the beginning.
beautiful.
Um, and after an hour and a half, 2 hours of sharing, and just the story collector just stays curious along the way, like, say more about that, or can you tell me about your grandma, or they get to the end, and almost every time in my experience in the room with them, sort of this big like, thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
I've never done that before. um,
It's amazing.
it's cool, and they're like, if
It's
this is all it was, great, I
it's
needed
amazing. It's
that.
amazing.
Yeah.
No, it truly is. It truly is. As it's storytelling and story collecting and story sharing, it's so incredibly powerful. And speaking of powerful and ADHD on both of our parts, we're getting near the end of our time together. So I know, I never like to let people go without asking, what is one thing you would leave our viewers with, Heather? Any
I
pearl of wisdom you have, share it.
I think the most significant pearl of wisdom I've gained from my time working with Erasing the Distance specific to mental illness is that your experience is deeply, deeply unique. And your the way you manage, the way you find healing, the way you find the best version of yourself on a day-to-day basis may have some overlap with other people's experiences, but is a deeply unique combination of things. And just because something worked for somebody else doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And that doesn't mean that all hope is lost. Keep searching and keep adding to that pie chart, right? It's going to look different than everyone else's, and that's just great. And maybe it includes medication, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it includes therapy, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it includes yoga, maybe it doesn't. But that there is a version of healthy for you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And I can't tell you how thankful I am at how patient you were with getting this off the ground.
The amount of patience I require from everyone in my life every day as a person living with ADHD is immense. So the least I can do is have patience
Thank
for
you.
others.
Thank you. Well, it was so good to see your face, and I look forward to our next offline coffee chat.
Absolutely. Bye.
Bye. Oh, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning into this episode, because Heather Bodie is just amazing, as I know you've just witnessed. So many insights, so many wonderful things to share. And I felt very, very connected to her in a lot of different ways. So I really appreciate you tuning in, and I look forward to our next episode, and hope you do too. And until then, be well.